watching Good Morning Jacksonville's extended coverage of Ian.
We are having a continuous coverage here as Ian just continues to batter Florida. We have a team of reporters all across the area. We're going to check in with them in just a few moments. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Katie Jeffries.
I'm Keitha Nelson. Welcome in. We want to get straight to our meteorologists. Right now we have both Mike Prangley, Jordan Wilkerson, as well as Robert Spetta here. We're going to start with Mike. Mike, I want to talk about specifically what's going on in the St. Augustine area. Perhaps you could let us know a little bit about the wind gusts, because we saw how that wind was whipping where Renata was. It was a little scary, I'm sure, for some who they're just now tuning in.
Right. Well, with these, what we call these tropical systems, right, because Tropical Storm Ian is about 100 miles to the southeast of St. Augustine, you get what they are called these feeder bands in toward the center of the storm. It's just like a big, large vacuum sucking everything toward its center, and you tend to get these bands of some very heavy rain. And Renata, unfortunately, got under one of those heavy bands of rain. Now, they extend only so far, so one part of St. Augustine will see that torrential rain like Renata, the other part will not. The good news is those bands of heavy rain extending toward the center of Ian, it's not widespread at this point, okay, like we've seen with other tropical systems here. So you see the Bridge of Lines, we've had Lou out there, Renata, there's the angry water there, and as we put the time lapse in together, notice we've had these squalls of rain. And really, as far as impacts go with this system, it would be St. Augustine and the coastal areas of St. Johns and Flagler County that will see the biggest impacts. So we saw the wind, of course. We've had some wind gusts officially over 60 miles per hour. And we've also had not just the wind, but of course the rain. And St. Augustine is one of the areas that's seen more of the rain around the area, okay? So in the 2 to 4 inch range, whereas many other areas outside those bands haven't seen too much rain. So as we look at the latest wind gusts, notice 47 miles per hour in St. Augustine, but that's at the airport. So where Renata was, sure looked like more like 60 to 65, right? And then we got 56 in Mayport, 41 officially at Jacksonville International. And notice by the time you head to St. Simon's Island, beautiful southeast Georgia, not so beautiful today with those gusts of 38 miles per hour. And the good news for our Florida counties in Duval, we don't have any bridge closures, and I'm not expecting the wind to come up much more than what you see here. Okay, so I don't see any huge changes, like nature's not going to hugely ramp up the winds as we head through the rest of today, but the gusty winds will be there as we head through the evening. Just keep that in mind. What we are watching, though, the all-important wind direction, because we said the biggest impact from Ian would be the storm surge, because it's piling up the water along the Intracoastal Waterway, the river, and the ocean. But what we saw last night with the first high tide, per Tim Deegan, the water not quite making it to the dunes. So that was a good sign for the next 2 high tides that we're about to receive, especially without the widespread rainfall. So guarded optimism for sure. Another good thing, yes, we watch severe weather during these tropical systems, and here's Jacksonville, but with the latest track a little farther south and east, as Ian pivots up to the Carolinas, that would keep us in a very low risk for any tornadoes or severe weather, because a lot of times in these tropical systems you get in the front right quadrant and you can have numerous tornadoes. In fact, we saw so much of that in Irma, all right, and we saw that in Matthew. But as we look at Ian here, it looks like that risk will remain very low, because we've had a lot of dry, cool air wrap in to the center of the storm, something we have not seen with other tropical systems. So every system is different. This one, we're going to remember the rain, and we're going to remember the storm surge and that water coming up during the times of high tide. And the next time that's going to happen is that we head toward the noon hour. So we'll be ready for that. And then one more to watch as we head toward midnight. And as you see the Storm Prediction Center, once we get through today, hey, for the weekend, we've got the all clear. In fact, the FSU game is on. They're going to play. Now, as we take a look at some of those wind gusts and our future cast and the wind speed, things will start to come down, but we've got a long way to go. Not a day to be out and about, okay? So we've got these winds gusting 40 to 60 as we head into today and tonight with improving conditions toward midnight. All right, so next high tide, this is what we're watching now. And we got that high tide coming in downtown as we go toward 12:12 this afternoon and 12:59 a.m. on Friday morning, with improving conditions during the day on Friday.
Mike, don't leave just yet. I'm glad you High tide. Is that what we're waiting for to see what's set to happen in San Marco? The video right now we're not going to get to. I do want to talk to meteorologist Mike Prangley because we saw what was going on in San Marco where Destiny was. It looks so calm in comparison to what was happening in St. Augustine. So tell us about that. Is it during high tide that we're expecting to see possibly some flooding in San Marco?
Possibly, but at this point, not the flooding that we've seen with other tropical systems. So the good news is the downtown areas that have seen historically some of the flooding. Now there will be some flooding in San Marco with the high tide, but again below the critical values that we normally see that can cause big problems like to businesses and homes. I don't think we're going to see anything like that. The areas we're still watching for more of that water to come up and possibly affect some people and maybe some businesses. At this point, that's a big if. That would be St. Augustine, coastal southeast St. Johns County, and then into Flagler County. So more of a coastal type event. And then, yes, up to Jacksonville Beach, we'll watch the water come up much higher than normal. We could have a surge of about 4 feet, maybe even just 3.5. But again, not what we saw during Irma and Matthew. This is not the same animal.
Hearing you, I'm sure folks in that area are breathing a sigh of relief.
That's what I was just thinking.
San Marco in particular, during Irma, we saw what happened during that time and all the flooding there, folks losing everything. But you are saying, Mike, at this point, it doesn't look as if we're going to see anything like that.
Yes, exactly. And I've not moved my car in the parking lot, so that's a good sign.
That is true.
He did advise some of us, don't worry about it, because we're not playing around.
Like our canary in the coal mine. If Mike moves his car, then we all got to move our cars. Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah. We'll stay with him, but we do want to take a look at some video overnight in St. Augustine. We had been following kind of the saga of the sailboat. You saw this happen here earlier. It broke away from its mooring, and then it was kind of hitting the seawall there in St. Augustine. First responders were able to secure it, but it has since really taken a beating. Conditions in St. Augustine, kind of the worst we have seen in our area. That's where we find our Lewis Turner. So, Lou, it looks maybe like it's improved a little bit since the last time we talked to you. What are you seeing?
Well, you know, more flooding, and in fact, getting a little bit deeper now here on the side. Obviously, the highway, the Avenida Menendez, is designed for the water to run off to where I'm standing. So a little deceptive with how deep it is here compared to the center of the road. When it crosses fully all the way over, which it will here in the next 45 minutes to an hour, it'll the entire highway will be closed or at least covered by a little bit of water. Oh, so that's a nice Prius. Little honks. Anyhow, as we watch the waves come up and over the seawall, we've got the rising tide that happens around lunchtime. So certainly flooding is going to be the #1 story in St. Augustine. Still got our eye on the sailboat, holding strong, but beat up. The thing's taken an absolute whooping against the seawall, but at least it's not doing it up against the Bridge of Lions or the sea walk that they have built here. But tide continues to rise. You know, now a moment ago when we spoke, we were getting hit by the waves coming up and over the seawall. Now the risk of me standing here on the sidewalk, which I'm going to get out of, is getting hit by the waves from somebody's wake in the vehicle. Big truck coming. But anyhow, we're going to watch the continued flooding here along Avenida Menendez this morning. Getting closer and closer to lunchtime, guys.
Overnight, we saw water get as deep as about knee deep in that area. Are you thinking it's going to get deeper than that with this high tide coming up?
Well, actually, it's interesting. So one of the building owners just pulled up and was kind of surveying what's going on, and he was saying the high tide we had last night, and our meteorologists have been saying this. You know, we expect this high tide to be the worst one. So he was saying that he does anticipate, at least just from his experience with Matthew and Irma, that what we've got coming with this high tide, the flooding today, will probably be worse than what it was last night. And then with the outgoing tide, hopefully that'll be when conditions get a lot better and we can get back to normal.
It's so interesting, Lou, to see people taking what we're seeing so lightly there with all the flooding in St. Augustine. We're seeing all these cars driving by behind you. We saw that person, 2 people walking their dog earlier today. Are you talking to any of them? They don't seem to be so concerned as we are.
There's a common theme. There is one common theme, Keitha, and I've seen it time and again when speaking to these folks. These are you know, diehard in the true blue Floridian St. Augustine folks that have been through Irma, have been through Matthew, and their thoughts as they walk and take looks, and is that, if we've gotten through that, we can get through this. I understand the downside of that. In fact, we spoke with Sheriff Hardwick a little earlier, who was pleading with folks, take this seriously as one little screw up. And, it's not the big sweeping, massive thing that we see for Southwest Florida, right? Where we know this wall, it just takes one thing, right? It just takes one tree, one power line. You mess around and a manhole cover comes off a sewer, and you end up, hurting yourself in that, and that's where the issues come. But again, you've got the resiliency of folks who live in this area who are bound and determined not to go anywhere. And for better or for worse, that's just the way that is around this particular area. I mean, we just see it. And here I am standing out in it, broadcasting, trying to be your eyes and ears. It's just kind of part of the ball game, unfortunately. And right now, the ball game is flooding and it's tidal, and we wait anxiously for about 11:50.
I don't know, when high tide happens, makes you a little nervous.
It does, but we'll check back in with you, Lou. Thank you so much for being out there, being our eyes and ears for us in St. Augustine. We've got